Questions of Doom.
Hello and welcome back to another Questions of Doom. In this series, as ever, I attempt to answer questions that you send my way using the archaeosoup@gmail.com email address, as displayed on the YouTube channel homepage, but also, as you'll see at the end of this video. In answering these questions by video, it is my fond hope that the answer is made useful not only to the person who has asked the question, but also anyone else out there who may be wondering the same thing. Now, today's question is from a guy called Mojo. Mo-Joe, not one word. And it's with regards to whether or not archaeology in films is annoying for archaeologists. Now, I've already covered films and archaeologists in a previous Question of Doom. That was to do with films which have a historical authenticity, or which are just plain annoying because of a disrespect for historical authenticity. But I thought this one has a slightly different spin on it. So this is kind of additional to that video, and it's also actually additional to a blog post which had a list of films, and I suppose just my thoughts on some of these films. So I'll put links to both of those in the information bar below. So check those out along with this video if you would be so kind. But anyway, today's question goes like this: Dear Mr. Soup, this question has been inspired by the visual criticism which you posted on the Archaeosoup Facebook page earlier today, where you inserted Henry Jones Sr. into Prometheus, saying, "You call this archaeology?" It's a quote from The Last Crusade, which you should know anyway, being archaeologists, hopefully, or being fans of archaeology. This got me thinking about how annoying it must be for archaeologists to see archaeology abused to serve a plot spawned by some scriptwriter's fevered brain. Good poetry there, Mojo. I like. Do you get annoyed by such films? Are there any films which employ good archaeology? Cheers, Mojo. Well, Mojo, you ask a good question, and this is why I decided to make a video response to it. Yes, to a certain extent I do get annoyed, but also I don't. Essentially, I don't mind if archaeology is serving a good plot. Essentially, if it's fiction, if it's just sci-fi, I'm happy to go along with it, so long as it's not lazy. Now, for example, Indiana Jones going off and finding the Ark of the Covenant. The way he does it, how he does it, where he does it, why he does it, and against whom he is fighting to do it, is to the most extent, or to the largest extent, fictitious. It's just a load of rubbish. And there are, little bits taken from the Second World War history, or taken from obviously scripture or whatever, which are drawing on. But it's still just fictitious, and I'm happy to suspend disbelief and go along with it because there are no definite facts which are quoted that are just plain wrong. I mean, there are, for example, with regards to, say, the location of Tanis, or what Tanis is like, this kind of thing, but nonetheless, I can let those things go, I can go with it, because it's just a good story, it's fun. What bothers me, though, is when archaeology is just plain lazy. It really gets my goat. In fact, my goat has gone. It's been taken away by those folk who are just lazy when it comes to archaeology. The reason why Prometheus got a little bit of a ribbing yesterday was that there's a moment when he's going, these cultures here, they never met, but yet they all have the same symbol pointing to space. And he quotes, or rather there's an image of a cave painting from the Isle of Skye dated to around 35,000 BC. Now, around that time, maybe 2,000 years later, or closer to us, I guess, that essentially a glacial period begins, and right from then up until about 22 to 19,000 BC, as it were, you have a situation where Scotland just becomes uninhabitable to all intents and purposes. Miles of ice, sheets really, really thick, just scraping back the land. And I just think, well, why did you have to put that cave art from there at that time? Why not just just make a phone call? Just good old-fashioned dial a phone. Pick it up. Hello. Archaeologist goes, hello. Hello. Was the Isle of Skye inhabitable around about 35,000 BC? And then someone would just say, well, possibly, but it was increasingly hazardous. Could you not push it, forward by about 20,000 years, maybe just after the glacial period? maybe to about 18 or 15,000 BC, or even push it back to beyond the last glacial maximum. Before, you have stone tools in Scotland from before the last ice age, as it were. Why not set it then and have that sort of cave art there? But no, they just happened to choose, whether by through just ignorance, or well, ignorance is too strong a word, but through not doing the research, or through doing the research and just not caring. They chose a point when things might not have been. Basically people might not have been able to live there, and that just bothers me. It bothers me a lot, and so it's just lazy archaeology, and that's really just where I draw the line. That's more or less it. Few other things bother me really in terms of archaeology portrayed in films. Now, when it comes to films showing which are showing good archaeology, it's not all that easy actually to think of them. In the last video, in that previous video, I mentioned films which have a sense of history, or which portray historically accurate events. But as far as portraying an archaeologist and what they do, it's kind of hard to think of a really good film. And one film which I don't think I mentioned in that video is called The Body from 2001. Now this film is it's based around the notion of an archaeologist discovering a tomb which could or could not, may or may not, contain the body of a historical Jesus Christ figure. Now that obviously comes with a certain dramatic emphasis, and in this respect, this is why I'm happy to go along with fiction and archaeology to a certain extent, because it's the essence of drama. Something happens, and often something happens unexpectedly when you find it from the past. You're assuming something is the case, and then something challenges that. That's just drama. That's dramatic. So I'm happy to go along with it. But in this film, better than this, more than this, is the portrayal of the archaeologists themselves. She is stressed, she's smoking all the time, she's drinking coffee, not sleeping terribly well, she's having to deal with ultra-Orthodox Jewish groups attacking her, attacking the site, throwing rocks over the fence, people looting from the site, and it gives you a sense of the challenges faced by archaeologists, and just the desire to do a good job in sometimes very harsh circumstances. So I appreciate that portrayal of an archaeologist. Again, there are elements of fiction, there are elements of hyper-reality in there, but it's trying, and that's what I appreciate. Stargate, again, obviously there's the bit when they go to another planet. That's obviously not historically accurate per se, or sorry, archaeologically accurate per se. But as I did mention in the previous video, I think Daniel Jackson, the archaeologist in there, is at least they're trying to show an archaeologist who's working hard. He's more or less homeless. He's got no money. He's got some of the same books which I have actually in the library here. And he also is, at the beginning he's talking about the questions of the origins of writing and this kind of thing. Now some of that is based in pseudoscience, what he says in the film, but also it's archaeologists do that. They debate, they turn up at symposiums, obviously not the ones featured in archaeology gastronomy usually, and also they discuss these things in that kind of environment. So I appreciate that portrayal of an archaeologist. They're trying their hardest to establish the character as a believable archaeologist, and I'm happy to buy into him. The film Timeline, I'm fairly sure I mentioned this one in the previous video. While again a load of rubbish, it's got time travel in and all that kind of thing, it's at least showing archaeologists on a dig. Again, they're not the richest people in the world, they're not the most glamorous, they're not Lara Croft, they don't live in a mansion, they're living in a tent, sharing beer, digging in a little hole somewhere with music in their ears, this kind of thing. It's a nice portrayal of archaeologists. I'm not saying it's entirely accurate, but again, I appreciate the effort which is going into those moments in the film to root it in some sort of reality. So that's good. Mrs. Soup, I imagine, would love me to mention Bones, the TV series. She very much appreciates Bones, and also so do I, because yes, again, a bit like CSI, there are these moments when techniques happen in seconds, mass spectrometry and this kind of thing. This happens in Timeline as well, actually. They just get a result back in moments, which it often isn't the case, or certain chemical reactions, this kind of. Anyway, but it's based in reality. It's actually based upon a real forensic anthropologist called Kathy Reichs, and she really did, or really does, has done work with the FBI. So again, it's a portrayal which is hyper-real, it's serving dramatic emphasis, it's serving the needs of a drama, but again, they're trying, they're asking the right questions by the look of it, and they're getting some good answers, which is good. So that's more or less my very subjective answer. I think every archaeologist will give a different answer to this question. Some archaeologists simply will note, no bad archaeology ever. Others just, really don't care because they're just there to be entertained. And I'm kind of halfway between the two, I think. I love being entertained, but also it just pulls me out of the drama when something could so easily have been done better. So thanks so much for asking the question, Mojo. Oh, incidentally, I'm well aware of the irony, actually, of in the previous video, if you've watched it, or if you go and watch it, I praise Ridley Scott for the tone that he sets in his films when it comes to talking about the past. He doesn't take too much as being overly sacred, and he's able, for example, archaeological facts about, in that instance, how to light an arrow, but you can see that video. I appreciate those things. I think he sets a tone which is good. And then, obviously, it's rather ironic that Prometheus has just bothered me. But it's kind of different. I mean, he's making, in a historical film, he seems to get things appreciably right. I like what he does. In this particular film, it just bothered me. Then again, I imagine he didn't do that. He didn't do the work on that particular graphic in Prometheus. So, maybe his reputation is intact, possibly. Anyway, nonetheless, thank you very much for asking the question, Mojo, and I now throw open the floor to you folks to comment below. What are your thoughts on this? Should archaeologists be more active in encouraging a better portrayal of archaeology in films? Is it wrong to simply allow Hollywood or wherever to regurgitate platitudes and just assumptions about the past which are reinforcing an incorrect view of our heritage? Should we actually just be saying, well, rather than saying this, why not ask this question instead? This question is real, it's just as dramatic, go and have fun with that. And anyway, discuss. And until next time, guys, bye-bye.